before I share my screen, what are the 4 forms you need to have to represent a buyer? There's 4, and I don't expect that you're going to know all 4 for the new ones, but I've got some people who are experienced here.
Well,
So
buyer broker.
Okay,
Wire
buyer
fraud.
broker agreements, the first one. Okay,
Buyer due diligence.
Okay, I hear a guy talking. Is it Sergio?
Yeah, I said due diligence checklist.
Yep, the buyer due diligence checklist. So buyer broker agreement, buyer due diligence checklist. What's another one we have to have?
Home inspection.
Okay, there's a form called home inspection. It's an ERA form. There is one in the MLS, but this is an ERA form. Here you go, Isaac, that you can find, and I'll show you guys where you're going to get these forms. Okay, one more.
Wire fraud.
Thank you, Rosie. Wire fraud. So, and you'll see where these forms, the due diligence and the wire fraud, you don't even have a buyer broker agreement without the wire fraud and due diligence with it, okay? Those 2 are part of a buyer broker agreement. So let's say you have buyers and you haven't pre-filled out these 4 forms and they're ready to write an offer. Is there an order you should do things? Can you just jump right in and do the real estate purchase contract?
No.
No, what do you have to have first?
Agency.
Buyer broker.
Yeah, buyer broker, and Tim said it. You have to have written agency with that buyer before you can write a real estate purchase contract for them. So if you're doing all the forms in one sitting, buyer broker has to be done first, which means buyer broker, buyer due diligence, wire fraud, and then our home inspection. Do those 4 forms, and then you can write the REPC. So here's my suggestion when you're working with buyers. Get those forms done early and just say to them, you know, there's a lot of forms that have to be written out for me to represent you and for you to write an offer. So let's go ahead and get the representation forms done early so that when it's time to write an offer, we don't have to do all of the forms, okay? So that's a good way to get them to say, okay, yeah, let's go ahead and get those done, okay? So I'm hoping next Friday to get Michelle Holt to come and help us with the training. She's going to train on how to qualify buyers. She's very, very good at that. Some of you have already heard her give that training. But anyway, you should meet with the buyers and have them fill out those forms. And sometimes agents get weird about the forms. After we talk about them today, you won't feel so weird about them. We're going to start with the buyer broker agreement. I'm going to share my screen. And if you have printed out, okay, where's Kendra? I know she was waiting somewhere and I lost her.
If you go back down to participants.
Oh, that would bring this up, but maybe she got in. Kendra, did you get into the call? I saw her pop up in the room and then I started sharing and missed her. Okay, well, hopefully she'll come back. Okay, can you guys see my screen okay?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for having your camera on, Sergio. I have a head nodder today. Oh, there's Tim and Fred. You guys are just too far down on my view. So, alrighty, let me pull you guys down so I can see the screen up here. And we're going to go on the forms. So, to get to the forms, at least the buyer forms, now make note of this. You can get forms out of the MLS, right? But your buyer broker agreement, you've got to get out of the ARTI files. Why? Why does our buyer broker agreement, the ones you guys use, why does it need to come out of the ARTI files instead of the MLS? Because
it has the $195 fee.
Thank you. That's exactly why. Because there is a $195 transaction fee, or what is it we call it? It's such a long name.
Regulatory.
Yeah, regulatory compliance fee. that's on the one in Artie that's not on the one in the MLS. So what happens if your buyer does not pay the $195 regulatory compliance fee?
Come on,
We
it's out
have
of
to-
your pocket.
That's right, comes out of the agent's pocket. You guys will pay it. And you cannot, at closing, go, oh my gosh, you guys, sorry buyers, I forgot I used the wrong buyer-broker agreement, and now you've got to pay an additional $195. You can't do that. They have to know right from the beginning, or you're going to eat that $195 out of your commissions. So make sure that you use the buyer-broker agreement and the exclusive right to sell listing agreement from Artie Files, okay, which are over here. You go to this file share and click on it and go over here to Utah Forms, okay? And all of the forms you need to represent your buyer are here. So we're going to start today with the buyer-broker agreement, and we won't finish it because I talk about a lot of things. I know you guys think, what does she have to say about this? It's going to take that long. And I will say, a lot. I have a lot of things. Whoops, that's not where I wanted to go. I have a lot of things to say about it. I just wanted to be able to view this larger.
You're gonna have to just download it and then open it.
Yeah, that's what I tried, but I didn't see a download.
So you just would save it as 269.
Okay, is it going to bring it up?
Nope, you have to go to your download folder. Oh, maybe. Oh,
There we go. All righty, so here we go. We're going to take this paragraph by paragraph. You guys are going to take turns reading, and just be aware, there's a lot of you who haven't been in forms trainings with me before. I'm going to stop you a lot, okay, to talk about things. And so if you keep reading, I'll say, okay, stop there. We're going to talk about this, which I'll do tons. So just be prepared for it. Okay, I'll start with the top and number one. So exclusive buyer-broker agreement and agency disclosure. This is a legally binding agreement. Read carefully before signing designated agency brokerage. So here's the deal, you guys. You cannot just DocuSign this to your clients and have them sign it. You've got to explain it to them, and then you can DocuSign it to them to have them sign it, okay? They need to have this explained the way I'm going to explain it to you so that they know what they're agreeing to when they sign this form. But my biggest fear as a broker is that you guys like, oh, I love DocuSign, and you just send all these forms over to your clients to sign without explaining it to them first. Please do not do that, okay? All righty. This exclusive buyer-broker agreement and agency disclosure is entered into between, the first blank is the company, so ERA Brokers Consolidated, and the buyer, okay? So this is an agreement between the brokerage and the buyer, okay? The term of the agreement. The buyer hereby retains the company, including blank, the buyer's agent. That's where your name goes in, okay? As the authorized agent for the company. This is where some people get mixed up. Starting on the effective date, as defined in section 15 below, and ending at 5:00 p.m. Mountain Time on the blank day of what? 2000 what? So many agents don't read that, and they go and put the day they're starting their buyer-broker agreement in this space, and then you have a one-day buyer-broker agreement, okay? So remember that the date you're putting in here is when your buyer-broker agreement ends, okay? So suggestions, agents that have been working for a while, how much time do you usually put on
6
this
months.
term of agreement? 6 months, Rosie says 6 months. Any other thoughts, Fred? I thought I saw Fred come in. You do 6 months as well?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. So you can put whatever you want to put. If you were doing land, I would do a year, right? Because it takes a lot more time to get through a land process. Fred, did you have another comment on that?
No, oftentimes a year does make sense, and in this kind of a market, if you have people that are pretty set on a fixed price point and knowing what the market is doing, it could take a substantial amount of time to
Yeah.
find them that home, and therefore either you're going to have to request an extension or commonsensically just go ahead and establish it for a year.
Yeah, because we're writing, I mean, I know some of you have been working with buyers for months and still have not been able to get them under contract on a home, and may not until the buyer agrees to go out further or the market shifts a little bit, which we don't think it will for a year. So I do think that maybe doing it for a year might be a good idea with the market that we're in right now, but that's a decision you guys can make. Just the biggest thing is remember that that's not the start date, that's the end date that you're putting in there, okay? And the start date, we'll talk about when we get to section 15. Okay, comment?
Yep, real quick, just I would think that you need to talk to your buyer, and if they're interested in new construction, you probably do want to set them up for a year, because that process right now, I was at that Edge event yesterday up in Draper, their headquarters.
Good.
And they're talking right now probably at least 9 months out for some of the new homes they're releasing, the condos, townhomes, and the new single family detached, that stuff. It's 9 to 12 months out right now that people are bidding on.
Good comment. One thing to make note, and we'll get to that in here, is if your buyer broker agreement ends while you're under contract on a property, it's just automatically extended without having to do a new buyer broker extension through the closing of the property that's under contract, okay? But in my opinion, better to be protected, right?
Is that written out, that automatic extension?
Yes, we'll get to that paragraph, okay? Okay, so you put the date, so it ends on either the date you put here or the closing of the acquisition of a property, whichever occurs first. This says acquisition of a property, right? So what does that indicate?
I'm assuming it indicates any purchase that was done in real estate, right? So it can be house, condo.
But if they have one closing, it finishes this buyer broker agreement, right? So if they're going to have 2 closings, you're probably going to have another buyer broker agreement, because one closing then ends this agreement. Okay?
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
So I've had this question before where somebody was under a buyer broker agreement and then they want to use another agent, but they were set to close on this buyer broker agreement with agent number 1. But then they want to use agent number 2, but
for a different property.
For a different property.
That's okay, as long as they close the one that they're under contract with this agent on here with that agent.
So once they close and that closing ends this agreement, even though it's still okay.
Well, it says ending at 5 o'clock on such and such a date, or the closing of an acquisition of a property. It's not and, it's or, okay? Whichever occurs first. Okay, that's the initial term. To act as the exclusive buyer's agent in locating and or negotiating the acquisition of a property in blank county, Utah, or located at a specific address. Okay, Fred, what would you put there?
I'm multitasking here, so I
figured you might be. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. All right, say again, I'm sorry.
Okay, so you're helping the buyer locate a property and negotiate in blank county, Utah, or located at specific address. What do you normally put there?
I'd normally be inclined to put the broader area, so I might put one, if not even potentially multiple counties to cover my...
Thank you. That's exactly right, because there will be times that your buyer says, I only want you to represent me on this specific property. If that's what they say, then that's when you would put an address in, right? But that doesn't happen very often, and you've got to include as many counties as your buyer might possibly look, okay?
So this is saying if you just put Utah County and then they started looking at Salt Lake County, this does not,
Apply.
it does not. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. Okay, any questions on that? Rosie, did you have a comment?
No, I just put always Salt Lake City, and if I have to check for Lehigh, Saratoga is Utah County.
Yep.
But I protect the county where I'm going to show properties.
Okay, perfect. Okay,
So I
during
have
the
a-
initial, go ahead.
Oh, I
Yes,
have a question
Kelsey.
real fast. So,
Yep.
let's say originally you would decide that you only want to search in like Utah and Santa Clara County, but then the buyer decides later on in the process that they want to search in Salt Lake County. Do we just put an addendum that we're including?
You can add
Salt
an
Lake?
addendum, exactly.
Okay.
And it has to be an addendum to the buyer broker agreement, okay?
Okay.
But you'll find, Kelsey, as you start selling property, that buyers change their minds all the time. So I usually just start by writing every possible county that they may look at. So I would always start with Utah and Salt Lake County, and maybe even Davis County, Tooele, because a lot of people are going out towards Tooele County. So, and then you might even have to do Juab, because people are heading further south. So right in the counties where you might possibly be showing properties. So during the initial term of this exclusive buyer broker agreement and any extensions thereof, the buyer agrees not to enter into another buyer broker agreement with another real estate agent or brokerage. Okay? Any questions on paragraph 1? This is why this takes a long time. There's lots of discussion.
I do have a question earlier. Could a buyer enter into a buyer broker agreement with me on one property and then enter into a different buyer broker agreement for a different property with another agent? Could they do that at the same time?
They could if they were only putting down the address on the buyer broker agreement.
But what about that
instead of
last?
count. Oh, sorry, we've got dates. Excuse me, you are correct.
Yeah, the last
No.
sentence also excludes it, doesn't it? It says they will not, during the initial term.
Enter, yeah. During the term, they cannot enter another buyer broker agreement. So even the county one doesn't work, Kim. They would have to, because this goes through the initial term of the exclusive buyer broker agreement. So they would just have to say, okay, my agent, now I want to look in Salt Lake County, let's add that county in, okay? So we are only licensed in Utah.
Yeah.
Okay, but like the person writing a buyer broker agreement isn't strictly specific to Utah. Though.
Oh yeah, because they can only sell property in Utah.
No, the buyer. I mean.
Oh, the buyer? No, they can buy it with another agent in any other state.
Yeah.
Correct.
So it doesn't qualify because we're not licensed anywhere.
Correct. Yeah, Utah only, okay? And yes, it extends for the entire term that you have a buyer broker agreement with them. So that brings me to a comment. So, because I hear you agents talk about this quite often. You talk to some buyer and they aren't happy with the agent that they're working with. You cannot jump to saying, oh, well, if you don't like them, go talk to your agent and see if they'll drop you, da-da-da. You know, if they're asking your advice, then, you know, you can say, well, you're in a buyer broker agreement with this other brokerage using that agent, and you need to go talk to them. And until and unless you're able to get out of that buyer broker agreement, which it's highly doubtful you will be, I can't talk to you. You have to go to your agent, okay? So yeah, don't try to help buyers who are already under a buyer broker agreement. That could really come back to hurt you. Okay, let's go to, I'm gonna look at my order of agents to have you read. So if you can't read, you're gonna have to just tell me, okay? So I can't see your names here. Hang on, let me lift this up. Okay, Rosie, will you do paragraph 2, please? And I'm probably gonna stop you a whole bunch of times.
Sure. Brokerage fee. If during the initial term or any extension of the initial term, the buyer or any other person acting in the buyer's behalf acquires an interest in any real property as referenced in section 1 above, the buyer agrees to pay to the company a brokerage fee in the amount of $ or percentage of the acquisition price of the property.
Okay, I'm going to stop you right there, and let's talk about that. So your buyer gets sick, or your buyer lives out of state, and they have a relative that's helping them that has interest in the property, or they have somebody else helping them because, and they've given what am I thinking? They've had somebody else, given them, somebody else the right to acquire the property for them, okay? So anybody, the buyer themselves or any other person acting in the buyer's behalf, okay? A parent buying a home for their child, okay? The buyer really is the parent in that case, right? But it acquires an interest in any real property as referenced in section 1 above. The buyer agrees to pay the company a brokerage fee in the amount of a dollar amount or a percentage of the acquisition price of the property, okay? Now, don't panic. Your buyers probably aren't going to have to pay anything, but we'll go through that. But ideas and thoughts, what would you put in here? Rosie, we know you have an opinion on this. You talked about it in team meeting. What would you put in there, Rosie?
So sorry, could you give me the question again? Somebody just text me and get me out of my...
Oh, that's okay. The brokerage fee on the buyer-broker agreement. What would you put in there?
For the brokerage fee, I put the 3% on it. I never put the dollar amount.
Okay. Okay, so 3% is what Rosie puts. Do you have to put 3%?
No.
Nope,
No, you
don't.
can put more.
You can put more. Rosie,
When
I love you.
when I do sell by owner, most of the time what I write there is 4%.
Yeah, because you're going to do the work for two people, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so you could do 3, 4, 2, 2.5, okay? What I don't want you to do is undercut yourselves, okay? So I know that you're worried about this buyer having to pay this, but don't worry. The dollar amount is there because sometimes you might be willing to take a dollar amount. Maybe a buyer and a seller have already found each other without an agent, and they want an agent to help them write the paperwork, okay?
Diane,
so
when I see dollar amount, I see that quite often in the mobile homes. And the mobile homes, when they're small, they put at least 1,500 there. Yeah.
Okay, that's really a good point. Mobile homes sell for such a small amount of money that sometimes when that happens, you'll put a dollar amount instead of a percentage because 3% of the price of a mobile home is pretty low, okay? So any questions, comments, concerns before I go past what you're going to put in these blanks?
I do, Diane. So is the brokerage fee basically our commission for this sale?
This is not a commission, it's a brokerage fee because this is the buyer's side. So this will get explained as we go forward, okay?
Okay.
So the buyer's only going to have to pay this under certain circumstances, okay?
Okay.
All righty. Okay, Rosie, start on and the regulatory.
Okay. And a regulatory compliance fee of $195.
Okay, remember, you've got to pay that, okay? Your buyer needs to pay it or you pay it, so use this form.
Otherwise you pay that. That's right.
Yeah. All right, keep going.
If the property acquired by the buyer is listed with a brokerage, the buyer agent show above provide that the
you skipped a line, Rosie. You skipped a line. The buyer agent commission.
Brokers, and mine doesn't say the buyer broker commission. It says
the buyer
brokers. If the property acquired by the buyer is listed with a brokerage, the buyer agent commission back paid to the company by the listing brokerage should satisfy the buyer's obligation for the brokerage fee. Shows above, provided that the back is no less than the amount shows above.
Awesome. Okay, let's stop there. So what do you guys think this is saying? If the property acquired by the buyer is listed with a brokerage, the BAC paid to the company by the listing brokerage will satisfy the buyer's obligation for the brokerage fee. Does that make sense?
Unless it's less.
So if it's
Correct,
less,
and I'll get into that.
if they
Yeah.
have it less at 2.5%, then it's saying that your buyer's gonna pick up the other percentage if it's
Okay.
more on this agreement, correct?
Exactly, Shari. So let's say you write in here 3%, and then the property that the buyer is really interested in, the BAC is 2%. Who's going to pay the 1% difference?
The buyer.
The buyer is obligated to pay it, right? Okay, somebody else had a comment. Okay, all righty, so that happens a lot right now, right? And Rosie was saying the other day that she just tells her buyer they're going to have to pay for it. And you'll hear Michelle talk about this. This is why she meets with her buyers before she ever starts showing them property, because she educates the buyers that they are going to have to pay a difference, which then in her buyers' minds keeps them very cognizant of that BAC, because they don't want any money coming out of their pocket. So they, a lot of times, will only ask to see properties that have a BAC that's equal to what their brokerage fee is, so that they don't have any money out of pocket, okay?
We had a funny story here with one of our agents where the BAC was much lower, and it's his sister that he's out showing. And he just said, he went to her, he's like, you owe me the difference. It was a large sum on his own sister, so he prepared her.
Yeah, don't be apologetic and prepare them up front. It's their choice then, right? So, and I am a broker that comes from people with different varying opinions. You might just choose to do an addendum to the buyer-broker agreement and lower your brokerage fee to match the BAC on the property that they're writing on. That's okay if you want to do that, okay? So that your buyer doesn't have to pay the difference. So basically, you know, there's three things. The buyers only look at properties that have the full amount so that they don't have to pay any, or the buyer understands they will pay the difference between the brokerage fee and the commission being offered to the company, or you as an agent can choose to lower the brokerage fee.
But I
to
think
match.
it's really important to point out here that if you have not had this discussion and you do see a commission at 1% and your buyer wants to go see it,
You go
you
show,
have to show it to them.
you show
can
them
explain
everything.
it, you know, that you're going to owe me the difference, but you cannot not show a property because of the BAC. that's
Exactly.
offered.
Thanks, Kim. You have to show them what they want to see. And that's why a discussion about this with your buyers up front is really important, instead of, oh, they're out finding a property and they're so excited and they love it, and then you forgot to tell them that they're going to have to pay the difference between the BAC and the brokerage fee. And that difference could actually make it so they don't even qualify for the loan, okay? So you guys have got to talk to them up front. Any questions on that? That's probably one of the biggest things on the buyer-broker agreement that agents don't understand and forget to tell their clients. So let's make it all really clear right now. Questions,
Diane.
comments? Yes,
Diane,
go ahead, Rosie.
I've been doing this for so many years. When I sit with my buyer, I do not send this document by email or, you know, sign that and return to me. No, I like to sit with them and go line per line and explain to them, this is what it is.
Yeah.
And where the money goes. And I respect the broker. And I said, this is money of the brokerage, you know, and this is the way that it's divided. And I just go in detail with that. And I never receive a no, like I sell homes that is 2%. They pay me the 1%. So they never say no.
And I agree with you, Rosie. It's the agents who are timid about it that have pushback. If you just go in and say, this is the way real estate is, we might have to write offers on 30 homes, and I'm doing a lot of work for you. So this, and I like how Rosie puts it on the brokerage. I always told my kids when I was raising them, if you're in a situation you're not comfortable with, just blame me as the mom. Just put it all on me. I'm good with that. So you guys can just put it all on me, okay? Or you can do it whatever way you want to do it. But I appreciate that comment, Rosie, because I think it's your confidence in telling your buyers this is how it works, and this is just how it is.
And also, when you do a listing, I noticed that people go for 2.25% or 2% or 1%. I don't know if you remember, but I just made an addendum and said, okay, if I sell your property for the amount of money that you want to receive, you're going to take care of the 3%. If I do not, if you do not receive the money, okay, you can work with a commission and lower to the 2%. But it's kind of hard to lower that amount because we have a brokerage, and it's people doesn't understand that. They said, oh, 2%, 2%. They don't care. No, it's not my money. It's the brokerage money. You know, and they have to see it that way.
Cool. That's awesome, Rosie. Thanks. Any other comments on this or questions about it?
So what I'm gathering from this then is that if you are a buyer's agent and they're buying from a for sale by owner, then you have to have that brokerage fee because they don't have a listing agent.
That's very true.
Yeah.
So yes, as an agent, if your buyers want to buy a for sale by owner property, you'll start by asking the for sale by owner if they will pay, right? If they'll pay an amount. And you're not having to market. Some people, when they go to for sale by owner, have the for sale by owner pay the 3% or whatever, and then they just take a 3% on that. But yes, that's exactly it, because this says any properties that they acquire. And so it does help you and help cover you and in the circumstance that they decide to purchase a for sale by owner property. Any other comments or questions?
Diane?
Yes.
You said that you could write that, but if you wanted to change the amount, you could do it by addendum. Is there an addendum for that, or do you just put it any special way? Or
there is a blank addendum. So if you go into the forms in the MLS under the buyer forms, there is an addendum to the buyer broker agreement.
Okay.
And that's where you would make that change. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Okay, Rosie, keep it going.
Okay, and let's see. And it says
you're on if the property.
I'm sorry?
You're on if the property, I think.
No, we were into buyer will pay the difference at closing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, if the property is not listed with a brokerage and the absence of a commission agreement with the owner of the selected property, the broker's fee shown above should be paid by the buyer.
That's exactly what we just talked about. For sale by owner, it's not a listed property. All righty, keep going.
Unless otherwise agreed to in writing by the buyer and the company, the brokerage fee shown above should be due and payable on, if a purchase, the date of recording of the closing documents. B, if a lease, the effective date of the lease, or C, if an option, the date the option agreement is signed. If the transaction is prevented by default of buyer, the compensation should be immediately payable to the company.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So if you get clear to the end of the contract with the buyer and it's time to go to settlement and your buyer just decides they don't want to purchase the property, they still have to go forward and purchase a property with you, okay? Or they're going to have to pay you the 3%, or whatever you've put in your boxes up above, okay? They can't work you to death and not pay you, okay? So they can't default on this without being obligated to pay you a brokerage fee.
What would determine the value? Like, what would the 3% be based on? You just going to take an average price of the house of the range they were looking at if they don't end up buying a property? You know what I mean?
Yes, it says if it's prevented by default, that means that you have been, you are in
So
a
they went
purchase contract.
They got in the contract and then they reneged or backed out or whatever.
Correct.
Right, because
Okay.
isn't that as soon as you submit a purchase contract and it's accepted, isn't that the point at which I've earned my commission?
It is, except, well, the buyers have outs, right? The buyers can get out because of financing and appraisal deadline. They can get out because of due diligence. And they might not be paying you commission on this home, right? Because if they get out because of a couple of things, but they're still going to keep looking, then they won't owe you on that one, right? You'll just take them to another property. But if they default and say, we're not buying at all, we're done, then yes, they would owe you the money.
Okay.
Okay? All right, number 3, let's go to Fred. Will you do number 3 for us, please?
Okay, here we go. Number 3, protection period. If within X, whatever the months would be, you've decided on, after the termination or expiration of this exclusive buyer-broker agreement, buyer or any person acting on the buyer's behalf enters into an agreement to purchase, exchange, obtain an option on, or lease any property as referenced in section 1 above, located for buyer by buyer's agent or the company, or on the buyer or on which buyer's agent negotiates in buyer's behalf during the initial term, buyer agrees to pay to the company the brokerage fee referenced in section 2.
Awesome. So you are out showing your buyer property and your buyer broker agreement expires, and then they go back to one of the properties you showed them. So you actually located the property for them, or you actually negotiated on their behalf, one or the other, and they go back after your buyer broker agreement to that seller and purchase the property without you. That is the purpose for this paragraph, okay? So you're going to put months in there that this protection period will be in place. There's lots of different varying ideas about what you should put in this protection period. I am one that I'm like, really, how long am I going to watch this? Am I going to put a year in there, and for a year, am I going to watch every property that I showed this buyer to see if by chance they went back and purchased that property? No, I'm going to be on to my next deal, working my next deal, not worrying about going back and get money from a buyer that does that, right? I normally put 2 months in there because I want them to feel an obligation that they can't just immediately go back to something I showed them because our buyer broker is up and buy it without me. But I know that a lot of agents put 6 months. You can put whatever you want in there, but how long are you really going to watch that and go back for, okay? So other opinions. Fred, do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, you know, I've got an opinion on everything, Diane.
Good. We like your opinions.
I'll put 3 months, but
okay.
One of the caveat to that would be because of this marketplace that we're in, you're not going to have to watch it that long because somebody else is going to swoop down pretty quickly.
Yep.
On just about any home within reason in this hot market that we're in. So you're not going to have to watch it that long anyways, but just commonsensically, I'd normally do 3 and then maybe once a week, just do a follow-up on the property to see what was going on.
Cool. So the only way you're going to know if your buyer actually purchased one of those properties you're not going to be able to tell by the MLS because the MLS does not say what the buyer's name is. You're going to have to watch the county records, okay, to see if any of those properties end up recording into your buyer's names, okay? Any questions or comments on that?
Most of the time I put 3 months there because you need to focus on the future, not in the past. The present
Thank
works,
you. I like
the
that.
future is what you're going to make money. So don't look back. Never.
Awesome. Good advice. All righty. Let's go to Tim. Will you do number 4?
Sure. Buyer representations, disclosures. The buyer warrants that the buyer has not entered into any other exclusive buyer broker agreement with any other brokerage that is still in force and effect. The buyer will, A, in all communications with other real estate agents, notify the agents in advance that the buyer has entered into this exclusive buyer broker agreement with the company. B, furnish the buyer's agent with relevant personal and financial information to facilitate the buyer's ability to acquire a property. C, exercise care and diligence in evaluating the physical and legal condition of the property selected by the buyer. D, hold harmless the company and the buyer's agent against any claims as the result of any injuries incurred while inspecting any property. E, upon signing this exclusive buyer broker agreement, personally review and sign the buyer due diligence checklist form and wire fraud alert disclosure. And F, disclose to the buyer's agent all properties in which the buyer, as of the date of this exclusive buyer broker agreement, is either negotiating to acquire or has a present interest in acquiring.
Awesome. Thank you. We're going to go clear back up to A. Okay. In all communications with other real estate agents, let them know that you are already in a buyer broker agreement. What happens when your buyers decide they're going to go look at open houses on a Saturday without you, or go through model homes? How are you going to protect yourself?
They need to be aware. They need to tell everybody they've already got an agency agreement in place.
They do. And do they always remember to do that? No. They get all excited, and then the agent at the model home of the builder starts telling them, hey, you can save money if you don't have an agent, and then they let everything fly out the window and forget they're in a buyer broker agreement, right? So I would recommend that you make copies, extra copies of that buyer broker agreement, and give them to your buyer. And you say, I am happy to take you out when you want to go look at properties. If for some reason you decide to go somewhere without me and look at properties, you've got to have these buyer broker agreements with you so that you can show the person in the home that you are already under a buyer broker agreement commitment. Give them copies, especially when they're going into new construction, so that they can give those out. Okay, questions or comments on that?
Yeah, Diane, just a quick comment on that. More and more, I'm finding more and more with new construction that a lot of the builders are offering basically what amounts to, they say they work with realtors, which they do, but they're offering all kinds of inducements if you don't bring a realtor into the fray as your representative. They're offering upgrades, they're offering closing cost credits, they're offering blinds, they're offering washer dryer packages, et cetera, et cetera. So they're kind of creating a bit of a dilemma for your client. When
I agree.
Going into new construction by themselves.
I agree. We're going to have a whole other training on why buyers need representation on new construction, but they do. So don't think to yourself, well, why do they need me? They're building. They do need you. Okay.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so you need to make sure that your buyers understand new construction, existing homes, they need your representation. And yes, just prepare them for the fact that they might have builders tell them that they'll give them discounts. Make sure that you emphasize to them that just in our company alone, our agents have saved their clients money, homes built incorrectly, walls put where they weren't supposed to be because they had someone on their side looking out for them during the construction process. But if they use the agent that works for the builder, that agent works for the builder. They're not going to be looking for errors that happen in the building process. You have value, okay? So you guys have to understand you have that value and emphasize that to your buyers in your meeting before they start looking at properties, so that they don't get pulled into you don't need a buyer, because they really do, okay? B is furnish the buyer's agent with relevant personal and financial information. They have to let us know that they have the ability to acquire the property. They need to get pre-approval, all of that, okay? C, they need to do their due diligence, right? That's what that's saying. So, and you'll get into more of that as you get further in here. D, if somebody gets hurt while you're out looking at property, they can't take that, file claims against the company or you for that, okay? E, they have to sign these other 2 forms plus the one that we require, the home inspection, to make this a binding contract. Only these 2 make it a binding contract, but we require the home inspection one. F, this is where you can, if people say, no, I don't have a buyer broker agreement, this is a place that you can flush them out. When you start saying, well, have you looked at other homes? Have you, that you're interested in? Have you written an offer on another property? If they've looked at other homes or written another offer, what do you as an agent assume?
They already have another agent. They've already entered into an agency agreement.
Yes. So then you say, well, who showed you those homes? Well, I don't remember signing a form. Over and over and over, people are going to say they do not remember signing a form. You need to find out who showed them those properties and call that agent and make sure that there is no buyer broker agreement in place.
And I think sitting down and having them plan like Rosie does, this actually kind of solidifies in their brain and their head that they have signed something. Because if you just send it to DocuSign, it does not make you read everything. It just, you push a button and it scrolls all the way down to where they need to sign. Initial sign. They don't read it. Yeah, so maybe they honestly don't know that they actually are in contract with an agent because the agent never sat down and talked to them.
Yeah.
I have a comment, Diane.
Yes.
In the new constructions, when you get into the new construction, you see on the desk that it says, if you did not enter with an agent, they will not pay the commission to that agent, okay? And it happened a couple times with me that I get with people into new constructions. For some reason, the new construction is 4 or 6 months, and those customers go with a different agent because it's a friend and they found it out and and they want to collect the commission, and people say no. The new constructions say no. You get with this agent, but I'm going to pay your new agent. We're going to pay this agent. If you don't want to, it's going to be in the company money, and that's it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. So you've educated them about this new construction arm, but if they decide that they're going to go in and they get pulled in to buying a home or writing an offer, a contract without you, if you don't go into those new construction companies with your client or pre-register them, those companies are going to say, most of them, some of them are good about it, but the majority of them are going to say, sorry, you don't get paid. Well, guess what? You do get paid. Who's going to pay you?
The client.
The buyer is going to pay you.
The buyer is going to pay you.
Exactly. So that's why you need to educate them in this. Is, hey, don't be going in places without me or without letting them know, because if they then say they won't pay a commission, you're going to have to pay this money to me out of your pocket. Okay? If you are not, this is why we deep dive into this, because I'll bet every one of you have learned something new as we're going through this. Okay? You need to be teaching all of this to your clients. They have a right to know what they're signing. So don't just gloss over these paragraphs. You need to know them and help them with it. Okay, I'm going to hurry and get as far an agency as I can in 3 minutes before we end. And so I'm going to read. Agency relationships, duties of a buyer's agent. By signing this exclusive buyer-broker agreement, the buyer designates the buyer's agent and the principal branch broker for the company, the broker, as agents for the buyer to locate properties as referenced in section 1 above for the buyer's consideration and review. The buyer authorizes the buyer's agent or the broker to appoint another agent in the company to also represent the buyer in the event the buyer's agent or the broker will be unavailable to service the buyer. You get COVID. You go on a vacation. They are agreeing that another agent within the company can help them. Okay? Does that make sense? You guys need to run it by me because you're telling them here that the broker will be aware of this. Okay? And the broker will appoint, or at least you can choose the agent you want. Fred could say, hey, Tim, I'm going on vacation for a week. I have buyers. Will you take care of them? And you guys can make an arrangement. But you need to let me know so that if I have buyers calling and saying, Fred left on vacation and I had no idea. Well, I'd know they were wrong if you guys made me aware in the first place that there was an arrangement made for representation. And here the buyers are agreeing that that could happen. Okay? Alrighty. As agents for the buyer's agent and broker have fiduciary duties to the buyer. Here's that old car stuff, right? That include loyalty, obedience, full disclosure, confidentiality, reasonable care, and any other duties required by law. Okay? Any questions on 5.1 before we go? That one's pretty clear, huh? So we will pick up on Monday at 10 o'clock on 5.2, and we're going to try to finish it up. I think we can, okay? Because some of these future paragraphs won't take quite as much discussion. So we'll see you at 10 o'clock on Monday. Get on to Mastermind. You can just go into the calendar and find the link. All righty?
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Diane, really quick before you run away, have you seen this new company that's popping up on Facebook called Rex?
I haven't.
Yeah, I just saw it for the first time yesterday, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, you should go check those guys out because they're
sending out a 0% listing.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you something. There's a lot of companies like Rex or Red Door, or is it Red Door?
It's Red Door.
Mm-hmm. Open Door, sorry, Open Door, where they say it's zero commission.
Yeah.
Because they call it something else.
They call it a transaction fee or...
It's not that they're not getting charged. Like Open Door says they're no commission. It's 9% fee to use their program.
Yeah.
Well, this Rex thing.
Yeah, they said they're starting out in Ogden.
Yeah, Rex. The thing about the Rex thing is they're saying we're going to take your home and we're going to market it different. We're going to list it without using the MLS. They are basically bringing up they have another product that competes with the MLS where they will not market it in the MLS, so they're not obligated to pay like a broker fee or anything. They've created their own like listing service, their own like MLS to market it digitally and to do this kind of thing, and they're doing it outside of the MLS so that they're not they don't have to pay those fees. So
yeah, they also are not realtors. So if they do something wrong, there's no code of ethics. So just FYI, Tim, that's exactly the way Homey started.
Yep.
Non-MLS, operating outside, and it took about a year or two of lawsuits against Homey, and they ended up having to join and be part of the realtors and clean up how they were doing business. So it'll be interesting to watch this. Don't panic over it, okay?
Yeah, no, I just wondered if you were aware of them because I thought that's really interesting because it seems like it's just like those other ones that did it, and what's their angle? Besides they're another
Yep.
discount brokerage and we've got this unique digital angle. It's all brand new. And I'm like, yeah, I don't trust that at all. So,
I don't trust it either, because what platform, I mean, people search for real estate on platforms that are fed by the MLS.
right.
Zillow's fed by the MLS. If they're not going to go to a place that isn't as thorough as the MLS is.
I mean, could you imagine it being just on one platform versus putting on the MLS, which goes to hundreds of thousands of other platforms? Like,
Right.
why would you opt to do that?
Yeah, it's weird. I'm going to read up on it, Tim, and then I'll give you my
Because they say
opinion.
that they connect into Zillow and Realtor.com and all this. So anyways, I just thought I'd let you know and look at it and give me some feedback. Give us some feedback.
Thank
I will.
you, Tim.
Okay, thanks.
We
Have a good
will.
weekend.
You too.
You too.